Let's get started. I know it's the evening and we all have busy lives, especially with our adults. So I wanted to introduce myself. Many of you might already know me, but if you don't, my name is Madison. I am the CEO of One Step Beyond. I've been with the organization since its inception. The organization was created by both my mom and my dad. Originally for my sister Dylan, who has Down syndrome and didn't really have a lot of options out after she graduated from high school. And my dad had a very extensive background in nonprofit organizations already and helped my mom really get this off the ground. And at the time, we had no idea that it was going to turn into what it is today, 20 years later. We thought it was just going to be a nice program for Dylan and a few of her friends. But now we're just still amazed every morning when I wake up that we have this amazing organization supporting so many families and individuals. So it's a little bit about me. I am also joined tonight by a few members of our board of directors, as well as our housing committee. Mary Lou Michaels, James Tonkin, and Kelly Fogerly have all been very instrumental in keeping this project moving over the last 4 years. So we're excited to share with you tonight all about Nikki's next step and what we've done in the last 4 years and where we're going. So the purpose and format of today's session, obviously just a little bit of housekeeping we normally have to do, right? We're on a Zoom meeting, so if you could please just try to mute yourself so that we can have less background noise. Towards the end of the presentation, we'll all have the opportunity to unmute and talk and discuss and ask questions. But that also sort of moves into one of these bullet points. As we move through this presentation, please be taking notes on your questions. There's no wrong questions, and more than likely, if you're thinking it, someone else in the room is also thinking it. So, and as I mentioned in my email the other day, I might not have all the answers right now, but I think each question that you have helps us just to further evolve this project to make sure it's the kind of community that our adults want it to be. We'll update you all on the timeline based on our recent land acquisition, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And I'm going to try to keep the presentation about 30 minutes or less so that we have at least 30 minutes or more of discussion and Q&A. So with that, let's get right into it. So if you don't know much about Nikki's next step yet, it is a dream of a housing community for adults with disabilities that we hope to build one day. Mary Lou and other families have been talking about this for more than 15 years. And finally, we've had the opportunity to start to make this dream a reality. And this is the product of that. So our vision for Nikki's next step, it was built out of a need and more than just a need for housing options, but more of a need for inclusive communities for people with disabilities. So often people with disabilities are an afterthought, and especially with housing. I don't think anyone except for us really understands how important housing options are for people with disabilities. And we want to make sure that there are more inclusive communities out there that think of them from the first step and not just the afterthought. So like every community, we want neighbors. We want neighbors who will build relationships with each other, socialize with each other. We want them to know that they've got someone down the hall that they can ask for help. For me, it's always been like the television show Friends. I don't know if you all are familiar. I know it's a pretty popular television show, but anyways, so my sister Dylan, she's obsessed with the show Friends. And of course it's funny, you know, Joey Tribbiani, she loves Joey Tribbiani, but I think it's more than that. I think she always really enjoyed that television show because she saw that as her future. She saw herself living in an apartment with friends with people just across the hall where she could just go next door and have some pizza and talk with her friends. And that's what I hope, at least what I hope that this community could become. Our mission is pretty simple. You know, we want to make sure that we're providing safe and financially attainable housing. So our main goals and values are safety, support, and financial attainability. We want to create housing options that promote independence, create a stable living situation, and ensure longevity of that living situation. Essentially, it's something we've been saying a lot lately, and it might just become sort of our tagline in the future. But essentially, we want to build forever homes. We want this to be a long-term option for your adult. So what do I mean when I say financially attainable? So our future community is going to be comprised of both sale and lease options. So majority of the community is going to be for sale condos. And the sale prices of those units as of right now are pretty close to market rate. But we are going to have a subset of our units that will be offered at affordable lease options. And so we're talking about affordable income, low income options for leasing. These are going to be limited, but we hope to offer as many as we can. So why are we selling the units? There's a lot of different reasons, but a couple of them I'll highlight. One of them is that we wanted to cultivate a community of ownership, and allowing that ownership to enable families to build equity as an asset for the long-term financial security of their loved one. It actually wasn't my idea. It was another organization called the Big Wave Group, where they talked about buying these condos as equity for their adult. And I never really thought of it that way, but it is just a whole nother level of financial security for your adult. We want to offer peace of mind for parents. As I mentioned already, longevity is important. We all, I think about that next step for our adults and making sure that when we're not there to care for them anymore, that they are still going to be cared for in the ways that we know that they want and need. So the other reason why we're selling the units is because we want to create that sense of permanence that maybe other housing options don't provide. You know, group homes can close, adult developmental homes can close. But if you own a condo, no one's going to come and close that. That's always going to be yours. It's always going to be theirs. And lastly, we want to provide safety and support in an innovative and inclusive community. So we're planning on having community managers and staff at Nikki's Next Step, separate from the care staff that'll be providing in care services in the home. But this community staff, we hope, will offer another layer of security. They'll plan social activities. They'll support problem solving. That is more than likely going to happen. And they'll help the residents build the community that they want it to be. So where? So right now we are in escrow on a property that's located off of 67th Avenue and Paradise Lane in Glendale, Arizona. It's 3.2 acres. It's located in the Glendale Saguaro Legislative District with Ray Malnar's our council member. The neighbors include Foundation for Senior Living, which is another nonprofit organization. They have a community center to the west of the property. And so we're excited to have them as neighbors and have like-minded nonprofit organizations nearby. And then to the east, you can't really see it right now, but it is in the process of being developed. It's a tiny home rental community to the west. To the north are single-family homes and south single-family homes. So it's a neighborhood already, and we're excited to be able to join. The surrounding community, if you're not familiar with 67th, and it's in between Bell Road and Greenway. The surrounding community has a lot to it. It has a grocery store just right down the street. Lots of restaurants, nail salons, shopping, things like that. Places where I think there used to be a Whataburger, I think pretty close there too. Not like we're going to want our adults to be eating Whataburger every night, but it's not a rural community. It's also not incredibly urban. It's the suburban area that has all the amenities that I think we're all familiar with and used to living in Phoenix or the surrounding Phoenix areas. So I'm excited. I'm gonna show you, this is our site plan fly through. So it's exciting because you sort of get to see what the community might look like in the future. But please know that this is just a site. This essentially was used for a site plan, which is supposed to tell the city where we want buildings to be and how tall we want those buildings. But we thought we wanted to sort of zhuzh it up so that the city council could get excited about it, just like we did. So while we might change the external features, the landscaping, all of that is still subject to change, but I think it's a really great opportunity for you all to see what this forever housing could eventually be. Give me 1 second. I gotta switch screens, which I know is just gonna probably mess everything up in the future, but we'll get there. Okay, let me try to get back to my screen where we were before. Audience window. Share. Okay. We're back at it. Y'all can see the presentation again. Yeah. Okay. Great. All right. So let me walk you through some, I think, highlights of I am missing something though. Some highlights of where is it? Okay, I'm back. Sorry. Highlights of the site plan. Visitors and residents can access the property through the community building at the front. The community building will accommodate communal recreation areas along with residences. And it'll be 2 stories. We were very strategic about the density and the 2 levels with all of the buildings around the property. The buildings towards the edge of the property on the back of the property are single story, as to not provide too much height for the neighbors that are back there in that community. We wanted to get through zoning pretty easily, and that was one of the reasons why we had a mix of single and 2-story buildings. But that might be too much information, overshare. And Anyway, so we'll have a really nice community building in the front. What's going to be inside the community building, we're not sure yet. We hope that it'll have, again, just recreational spaces and spaces for people to get together and socialize and have activities. It could have a fitness center, it could have a dance room, it could have a meeting room, it could have a lot of different things. And as we continue to move through this process, making sure that we're getting feedback from individuals like you and also the program members. So again, that we can make sure that we're building the kind of community that they want. As I mentioned, we do have buildings along the property that are 2 stories. The units themselves will not be 2 stories, but we do have 2-story buildings, so there'll be units on the bottom and units on top. As I mentioned, the back of the community features single-level residences. Also, the design of the community, what we wanted to do is have not all, but majority of the windows and porches to face inwards so that there was a heart of the community right in the center. And that we would hope would encourage residents to get outside of their houses and engage with social interactions with things that they're seeing on the lawn. There's a little putting green here. There's also a dog run someplace. Again, these things might not be in the final design, but I think just sort of fun things to think about. Also seating areas around the property, providing plenty of space for groups to gather and individuals to maybe even just enjoy some quiet time outdoors when the weather's nice. As I mentioned earlier, we'll have indoor areas. They could include a movie theater, computer lab, communal kitchen. We're not sure yet, but again, hopefully things that your adults are gonna want. And I think this is also a great example of how things may shift as we continue to move on. This cement seating structure that you can see in this picture has already been X'd from the site plan. So just remove that from your mind. We're not going to have this cement amphitheater. Okay, so price. I know that that's a big one that we're all probably thinking, how are we gonna how are you going to afford this? How are we going to make this happen? So as I mentioned already, there will be options to buy units. And in terms of the model that we have right now, you'll have an option to buy a unit at a pre-sale, mid-sale, pre-build, mid-build, and post-build. So again, these figures are absolutely subject to change. Everything is pretty much subject to change at this point until we put shovels in the ground. There's a lot of factors that would affect the prices to flux, whether they go up or down. One of them is the final unit mix that we still haven't decided on. We're going to have 1 and 2 bedroom options, but we may even have 3 or 4 bedroom options. And we're also looking at how many units we can fit versus how many units we want versus how many units we need. Another consideration is fundraising. And that's why I mentioned the price could go down. The more fundraising we do, the less we have to rely on the sale of the condos to actually fund the project itself. So this was base pricing. So we're looking at 1 bedroom, 1.5 bathroom, ranging from $269,000 to $333,000, depending if it's pre, mid, or post build. 2 bedroom, 2 bath, around $367 to $454 for that 2 bedroom, 2.5 bath. Sorry, 2.5 bath. So this is base pricing, but I'll give you just again to sort of push forward the idea that things are variable. When I met with our CFO today, pricing was looking more like this. So as time goes on, prices go up. As we don't meet our fundraising goals, prices go up. And that's why fundraising is so important. I'll spend a little bit of time talking about that at the end of the presentation. Please stick around. Don't leave. So again, pricing subject to change. could increase, could decrease. A lot of it is variable at this point, but we wanted to obviously give you all an idea of what pricing could look like. As I mentioned already, we're going to have a limited amount of affordable low income units. We wanted this community to be as inclusive as possible, and financially feasible for those who can't afford market pricing or may not be looking to buy right away. Excuse me. But again, these lease units are going to be limited, but they are going to be there. We wanted to provide some kind of idea from your perspective of what it might look like on a monthly resident budget. So these are estimates, again, not hard prices. But one thing that I wanted to mention is that because this community will have an HOA, and with an HOA come HOA fees. We intend to keep those HOA fees as low as we possibly can. So for instance, right now our goal is to have the monthly HOA fee at around $300 a month. Now, with someone's SSI and SNAP benefits, I understand that having to have a mortgage as well as all of these other expenses probably wouldn't fit in that total monthly income. So in this particular scenario, the idea is that the mortgage would be covered by someone else, and not included in your adult's SSI. But how you obviously finance and figure out the financial implications of your own unit is obviously up to you. But we wanted to just provide a little bit of an example of what it could look like. So SSI, SNAP benefits, a low community HOA fee compared to other communities out there that are like ours, that are providing housing options for adults with disabilities. And then, on top of that, all the other things that we have to consider: utilities, TV, internet, insurance, etc. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we also did just a quick monthly operating budget for someone that might be a lessee. Okay, so how the heck do we do all this? So I'll say the road has not been easy, and I don't think it will be easy. If creating affordable housing for adults with disabilities was easy, someone probably would have already done it. And that's why I think you continue to see projects like ours pop up all over the United States, not just in Arizona. But in our initial research, I was surprised to see how many other living communities like this there are out there. And I think it's, because we have a critical challenge here. We have adults with disabilities in our communities that are gonna need housing sooner than later. And there are communities like ours that are banding together to make sure that they can solve that problem. So how are we gonna make this dream a reality? We're gonna need your help. So I know normally when the word fundraising gets brought up, that's sort of when everyone starts to run away screaming. But to make something like Nikki's Next Step happen, and happen soon, and happen at the rates that are financially attainable, we have to fundraise. Every donation, small or big, makes a difference. But we need to reach out to donors and potential donors. Who are they? So they're people like you, and they're people that you know. They might not know it yet, but we know that this is a project that's worth funding, and we know that our adults are worth it, because all we have to do is give them a little bit of support and they can do amazing things. We see this in the day program all the time. And we just got to let other people know it. So now we've got our current network of supporters. We've been working on building that network for a really long time, but it's not enough. And we're going to need your help to grow it. We need to find more of those community friends, framers, and founders who care enough about this cause that they'll open their hearts and their wallets and help us make it happen. So how do you do it? Honestly, all you have to do is ask. And you've got a community of parents and individuals who are here to help you make that ask. You don't have to do it on your own. I think a great example of one of our parents recently had a cocktail party at her house, something that she had never done before. But she got 15 of her friends and family together. She told her story and her family story, which is probably very similar to a lot of your stories. And in that night, she raised $10,000. And all she had to do was ask. So you might be thinking, I think, again, fundraising can seem very daunting. A lot of the times when we think about it, if you haven't done fundraising before, it's a lot of doubts of how, or that you can't. But I just have to say, if this could potentially be your son or daughter's forever home, it's going to take a village to build it. And right now we have a small group and we need to build that village. So again, if Nikki's Next Step seems like something that you're interested in, I encourage you to join our army of parents who are going to make sure that this dream becomes a reality, because we're going to need it. And I will end it there.